Have you ever looked at a billionaire like Warren Buffett and wondered, when did his wealth suddenly explode? From the outside, it looks like one day he was just a successful investor in Omaha, and the next day the entire world was calling him the Oracle. But here's the truth. His story is a masterclass in patience, discipline, and the power of compounding. Today, we'll walk through Warren Buffett's life story, the key decisions, real-life experiences, and turning points that made his wealth skyrocket. And by the end, you'll see that what looked sudden was actually decades in the making. Warren Buffett was born in 1930 in Omaha, Nebraska, right in the middle of the Great Depression. America was struggling. Banks were collapsing, people were losing jobs, and families were doing everything possible to survive. Growing up in that environment shaped Buffett's attitude toward money. He saw early on how fragile financial security could be. His father, Howard Buffett, worked as a stockbroker before later becoming a U.S. congressman. His mother, Layla, stretched every dollar to make ends meet. While other kids were dreaming of being cowboys or baseball players, young Warren was fascinated by money itself, not just making it, but multiplying it. At just 6 years old, Buffett bought a six-pack of Coca-Cola bottles and sold them door-to-door for a small profit. He wasn't just playing games, he was running micro-businesses before he even understood the term. By age 11, he bought his first stock, 3 shares of Cities Service Preferred. The price dropped almost immediately, and he sold when it went up slightly, making just a few dollars. But then, the stock shot up way beyond what he sold it for. That moment stuck with him forever. He learned the danger of impatience and the importance of holding on to good investments. As a teenager, Buffett hustled nonstop. He delivered newspapers, sold gum and magazines, and even installed pinball machines in barbershops, splitting profits with the shop owners. By the time he finished high school, he had saved the equivalent of tens of thousands of dollars in today's money. But unlike many young people with savings, Buffett wasn't dreaming of buying cars or fancy clothes. He wanted to buy assets. He wanted to own things that made money for him while he slept. The turning point came when Buffett discovered a book that changed his life, The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. Graham's philosophy of value investing, buying undervalued companies and holding them long-term, resonated deeply with Buffett. Buffett was so obsessed that he enrolled at Columbia Business School just to learn directly from Graham. Imagine being so determined that you move across the country just to study under the person who wrote your favorite book. That's how serious Buffett was. After graduating, he worked for Graham's investment firm, but eventually he returned to Omaha to start something of his own. In 1956, Warren started his first investment partnership with just $105,000 from family and friends. His own contribution? Only $100. But here's where his brilliance shone. Year after year, he beat the market, sometimes doubling or tripling his investors' money. By 1962, at only 32 years old, Buffett was a millionaire. Still, he lived modestly. He drove himself to work, lived in a simple home, and avoided luxury. To outsiders, he didn't look like a man whose wealth was about to explode, but inside his accounts, the snowball was already rolling downhill. The true wealth explosion started with an unusual decision, buying a struggling textile company called Berkshire Hathaway. Buffett has admitted many times this was a mistake. He originally bought it because it was cheap, but instead of shutting it down, he used it as a holding company to buy other businesses. Slowly, he shifted Berkshire's focus away from textiles into insurance, banks, consumer goods, and eventually tech. This was the turning point. Berkshire Hathaway became Buffett's engine of compounding wealth. Most people think Buffett has always been rich, but here's the surprising truth. At 30, he was worth around $1 million. At 50, around $300 million. At 60, $3.8 billion. Today, over $100 billion. More than 99% of his wealth came after his 50th birthday. Think about that. For decades, he was wealthy by normal standards, but not a global icon. Then suddenly, thanks to compounding, his wealth curve bent upward like a rocket. This is why Buffett often says the stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. One of the most fascinating parts of Buffett's story is how little his lifestyle changed while his wealth exploded. He still lives in the Omaha house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. He eats McDonald's for breakfast, drinks Coca-Cola daily, and loves cheeseburgers more than gourmet meals. He doesn't own a yacht or fly in a private jet. His humility wasn't just personality, it was strategy. While others wasted money showing off, Buffett kept reinvesting. His frugality was fuel for compounding. The airplane story. Buffett once gave his pilot life advice. He said, write down your top 25 goals, circle the most important 5, and then avoid the other 20 at all costs. That's how he managed to stay focused on investing while ignoring distractions. The 2008 financial crisis. When the world was panicking, Buffett invested billions into companies like Goldman Sachs and Bank of America. While others were fearful, he was greedy. Those deals turned into some of his most profitable moves. Philanthropy. Despite his massive fortune, Buffett pledged to give away 99% of his wealth. Together with Bill and Melinda Gates, he started the Giving Pledge, encouraging billionaires to donate most of their money to charity. So when did his wealth explode? If you look at the charts, Buffett's wealth really exploded in his 50s and 60s. But if you listen to him, he'll tell you it started the day he learned to be patient. His explosion wasn't sudden. It was the slow, steady result of decades of discipline, compounding, and avoiding unnecessary risks. Warren Buffett's story proves something powerful. Wealth isn't built by luck, shortcuts, or overnight success. It's built by patience, consistency, and letting time do the heavy lifting. What looks like an explosion to the world is often just the final stage of a snowball that's been rolling for decades. So the next time you feel impatient about your financial journey, remember Warren Buffett. He didn't become a billionaire until his 50s, but when his wealth exploded, it shocked the world. That's the story of Warren Buffett, proof that true wealth doesn't come from chasing trends or trying to get rich quick. It comes from planting seeds, letting them grow, and watching as decades of patience finally pay off. So when did his wealth suddenly explode? The truth is, it never did suddenly. It was exploding quietly, year after year, until the world finally noticed.